it's Bri the IBCLC, and I'm here to talk to you about my top 3 tips on putting together a daycare schedule for you working moms. My first tip for you today is to let your daycare know that you are going to be breastfeeding and that you will be breastfeeding right before you drop off your baby. Or if you want, you can even breastfeed right at daycare as you're dropping them off so that they are good to go and they're not needing a whole lot of supplementing while you're gone. And that will also give you the longest window so that when you do get to work, you don't have to worry about pumping right away. You can work a few hours and then start your pumping schedule. And also you can let your daycare know that, hey, I'm going to be working till 5 o'clock. I'll be picking up my child at 5:15. If you could just be sure to not give them a full feeding right before that time. If they're starting to get hungry, see if they can just wait till I come. And again, you can either breastfeed them right at daycare or as soon as you get home, because again, that's going to cut out one less time that you are going to have to be pumping. So that's a great thing to give your daycare a heads up on that, because we don't want your baby to be getting a lot of supplementation while you're gone. But we know that there's going to be, at least 2 or 3, depending on how many hours that you work in the day. But the least amount of supplementing and the more time at the breast is going to be more ideal, just so that they're not getting bottles all day long while you're apart, and then maybe they're not interested in breastfeeding when you're back together. So that's going to be a great thing to let your daycare know. I'm going to breastfeed them right when I drop them off and breastfeed them right when I pick them up. Tip number 2 is I want you to, when you're storing your breast milk, measure out the amount of breast milk and put it in containers, so that 1 container will be enough milk for 1 feeding. And you may be asking, well, how much milk will my baby take? Well, it's really easy. All babies from 1 month to 6 months take about 2 to 5 ounces per feeding. And that's the age that most parents are going back to work. So chances are that your baby is gonna fall in between that time period where they're gonna want 2 to 5 ounces per feeding. So you wouldn't wanna store your milk in an 8-ounce container, because then once your daycare thaws that out, it could be easy for your baby to overeat and take in more than that 5 ounces. Or even worse, it could be breast milk that's just wasted and thrown away, which we don't like to do that. So let's try and store your breast milk in containers of only 2 to 5 ounces. And you can just write on there, like first feeding, second feeding, third feeding, just to make it really easy and simple for your daycare. Tip number 3 is I want you to teach your daycare how to do a feeding method called paced bottle feeding. Because a lot of times with babies, we see them laying down like this and getting a bottle. And it's kind of just like chug, 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 because that liquid is going down their throat so quickly. And just like you and me, when you eat really quickly, it's so easy to overeat and get too much. So we don't want your baby chugging milk all day, because again, when you are reunited at the end of the workday, your baby's gonna be like, oh mom, I was chugging milk all day long. I just am not interested in breastfeeding. So we wanna feed your baby in a feeding method that promotes breastfeeding and mimics breastfeeding and doesn't take away from it. So I would like you to teach your caregivers or your daycare how to do paced bottle feeding. And what that looks like is that instead of laying down, your baby is either sitting up for a feed, or if they're little and still kind of wobbly, you can actually also lay them on their left side like this, so that the milk is going to the pocket of their cheek first and then they're swallowing it, instead of, again, it just going straight down their throat. But most babies are totally fine to sit up during feeds. And when they're feeding, the bottle's held more parallel with the floor and it's moved up, and baby takes about 20 sucks. sometimes 30 sucks, you can kind of start to see what's normal for your baby. And instead of ripping the bottle out of their mouth after those, 25, 30 sucks, what you can do is just pull back the bottle so that there's not milk in the nipple any longer, so that they can take a little break. Because don't you notice that when your baby's breastfeeding, they suck, they're swallowing, and then they take a little pause and they breathe and they think, am I hungry? Do I want more? Am I getting full? And it's a really great thing when babies can think about it and think if they're still hungry instead of eating so fast that they can easily overeat. So with paced bottle feeding, it's taking breaks throughout the session that they're getting a bottle, so that they're not just chugging quickly. And again, that will help them so that when they do come back to the breast, they're not getting frustrated with that paced flow, because they had that with the bottle and it wasn't just quick down their throat. So I hope this was helpful for you. I have more tips for you. I will share them in other episodes, so make sure that you're subscribed to my channel. If there's any other topics that you would like me to touch on, feel free to write them in the comments. So glad to hang out with you all today.